So we'll start the meeting with a pledge of allegiance, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so just a reminder for everybody, if you console can't use it for GPS. If you see us using the phones or the tablets, we're not communicating with each other. We're using it to look at GPS and looking at the roads and whatever maps from that, because we don't use it for communicating among ourselves during the meetings. So with that, I'm going to ask for introductions. So Diane.
Diane Ryan, Commissioner.
I'm Squirrel Braden, Commissioner.
Doug Cuny, alternate.
Bob Legner, Commissioner.
And now for staff. What am I missing?
I'll let Jeremy go first.
Jeremy DeCarli, interim planner.
Amanda Martinez, recording secretary.
All right. And we will be joined later on by Paul Chanley, but he's not with us just right now. He's working a 12-hour day. So with that, I need a motion.
I make a motion to have school chair of the meeting. We don't have ours.
Second.
Oh, hold on. Before you do that, you need to sit him.
Oh,
I know.
Can I sit him if I'm not?
That's a good question. Jeremy?
I think he can be seated because he's the alternate that makes the quorum, so that's fine. He's seated automatically.
Okay.
Can we ask that you speak up a little bit? It's very loud back here.
Can you have
Absolutely, but do me a favor, move up and two things will happen. You won't have so much sun in your face and you'll be able to hear us better. Go. Now, you're like I was all through education. I was in the last row all the time. Thank you. Okay. So, you're officially seated?
Yeah.
I seconded the motion.
Second motion. So, all in favor of having Squirrel be acting chair until Paul gets here?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so that one piece of bureaucracy carries over. And Eric's not here yet. But
No, Eric is not quite tonight.
Oh,
Nope. Don't have to stop. I'll talk to you because he's warm.
all right. So we have a quorum. And let's get started with our first project, which is 1 Norwood Drive, or 72 Reservoir Street, not road, yeah. And Mr. Trinkus,
Yes.
I believe there were a number of questions posed at the last meeting.
Yes, and we will answer them.
Excellent.
So, for the record, Stephen Trinkus, I'm a licensed professional engineer in Southbury representing the applicant. I'm going to share my screen. A couple different things. One of the questions that came up was asking us to do a title search of this extended width right-of-way on Norwood Drive. What's on the screen is the approved subdivision map of the first section of Norwood Drive. You can see here on the right-hand side that the right-of-way is wider than 50 feet, both on the east side and the west side, going up to what is our property line, the fence line. The note here says enlarged right-of-way in order to have this road, the slopes of the rock cut within the right of way. That's why they made this wider, so that instead of the slope being typically on private property via a slope easement, which is common when we do subdivision roads, back when they did this, because I guess the extent of rock, they wanted the slopes to be within the right of way. So this is owned by the town of Bethel. This is the right of way of Knollwood Drive. It's not the original subdivider. This is the approved map that's on, file in your land records. So this is all right of way as is the rest of, Knollwood Drive, which is 50-foot wide, except for this north end of it. I think the other reason they may have done this was, if you look at where the lot on the west side is, our side of the road, if they extended a 50-foot right of way back out to Reservoir Street, it would have been a non-conforming parcel of land that the only thing they could have done with it is perhaps convey it to what is now our property, but was owned by Robert Murphy at the time Knollwood was done. So I think they widened the right of way out, as a matter of convenience. I honestly have not seen a right of way like this ever in my life, but they had a note here on the reason they did it. That answers that particular question. Unless you have questions on this map, I'll go to the site plans. And I also emailed this map to Jeremy to be part of the record. This came from New England Land Surveying, who did the surveying for the site. So let me now switch to the different file. Okay, I don't know why something else is not showing up, but bear with me once.
I think so.
Lost him.
Oh, no, there it is. You're muted, Steve.
Sorry about that. I inadvertently hit the wrong, button. So let me bring the site plans up and share them with you. So the other thing that came up, the neighbors on Saxon Road had a lot of issues with concerns with flooding that according to many of my clients that have lived in Bethel all their lives, that road has experienced flooding since the day it went in. I drove in there yesterday and looked carefully both on the east and west side. As I said, I would give you my 2 cents about what I see going on. What I see going on is the eastern side of Saxon Woods, which abuts the wetland, which is I think the issue at hand, is, virtually level from Reservoir Street heading north till you get to the cul-de-sac when there's a little bit more of a pitch, but the more pitch is only like 1 or 2%. What I observed was all the homes on the east side of Saxon are raised ranches, which are, the first floor is, number of steps up, and basically the construction is a slab on grade with simply a frost wall. And you do that on lots where you're going to have, where there is or you expect high groundwater conditions, because you cannot, if you put a basement in, there's simply no place to drain the water from a footing drain. So all the homes on the east side are these raised ranches, because I believe it would be my assessment looking at the lots that, it was high groundwater and the builders, knew they couldn't put basements in. The west side of Saxon, which is, downhill of the Toll Brothers property, there's no development on the west side of the ridge line from Toll Brothers, but you have a pretty substantial, plateau at the top of the hill, and then a pretty steep slope coming down to the west side of Saxon. And again, I think similarly, when those homes were built, They were, the backyards were cut into that hillside, and there was a lack of drains, either at the top of the cut bank or at the bottom of the cut bank. So, during certain times of the year when we've had a lot of rain, and probably likely in the spring, that slope bleeds water into the people's backyards on the west side of Saxon. And I know some residents talked about having to put in curtain drains there, which is the way you get rid of it. The curtain drain should be at the base of the cut slope, to intercept that water before it gets towards the building foundation. And that would be one way to do it. You might, on some of them, and again, I didn't walk properties at all because I didn't have permission to, but the other thing is you might, as a homeowner, you might be able to grade your backyard to direct the water, to the north and south of your house, so it doesn't drain right to the back wall of your house. But again, that was a construction issue. That's the way they built the homes back then. Now you would have a drain at the base of that slope, to intercept that water. What can you do on the east side? This is kind of, to me, it's $1 million question, because that wetland area drains to the north to, Pulaski Lumber, and, goes further a little bit towards the Danbury town line. And it is just based on your GIS and even looking at the elevations on Google Maps, is literally dead level. There is no pitch whatsoever. The problem with that is water needs a slope to be able to drain. It goes from uphill to downhill, and when it runs out of elevation, it simply ponds, and that's what's happening on the east side of Saxon. It appears, the drainage from Knollwood and maybe some of Reservoir Street, all get discharged into that wetland area, to the east of Saxon. And again, this is a pre-existing condition. I don't have any great thoughts. The only thought I have, which would require a permit from Bethel Wetlands Commission, and obviously agreement of all the homeowners there, would be to basically at the back of their lots, build an earthen dike, for lack of a better term, at the limit of their lawns, so that the water in the wetland system stays in the wetland system and basically doesn't flood their backyards. That's the only way to really prevent their backyards from being flooded in the future. You can't dig a detention pond there because there's no place to put the water. If the ground has a high groundwater table, basically you're gonna dig a hole that's gonna fill up with groundwater. I've looked at drainage issues on other places before, but that's the only solution I can see is, basically build a dike to prevent the people's backyards from flooding. It's a difficult situation, obviously, but it's a pre-existing condition since that development went in. Even some people that knew the property before it was ever developed, said the area used to flood when there were not even houses in there. So, our system is not going to worsen that situation. We're fully compliant with the Bethel regs, which go from 2-year to 100-year, peak rate control. And that's what our design has met. And that's been reviewed by, SLR, for compliance with the town's regulations. So, again, I said I would look at that area and give you my 2 cents, and that's, what I can give you on, on this point. The other issue that came up, was the sight lines from Knollwood, looking to the west, towards, Danbury or Toll Brothers. And then as Mr. Murphy at 74, he was concerned about the sight distance from his driveway looking, on Reservoir Street going the other direction. So what I did talk to a traffic engineer. I talked to Kermit Waugh, who did the traffic engineer for 53 Taylor Avenue. I sent him my plans and said what the concerns were. And he said, you're only adding 2 units over what, you can do as of right. And what he suggested was, again, doing exactly what I did. We drew the sight lines from Knollwood looking to the west, from Mr. Murphy's driveway looking to the east. And we have, 250 feet in each direction. And what I also did was do a sightline profile of this. So this is, Mr. Murphy's driveway on top. So this is, his driveway on the left. For a sight distance, you measure up 3.5 feet, and then you go out to a 3.5 foot target on the westbound travel lane. So we have, 250 feet. There is none of this is all based on existing and proposed grading on our site. So there's no obstruction to the sight line for Mr. Murphy. The lower one here is again the opposite. Actually, it starts down here on the right where that's Knollwood Drive, 3.5 feet up, looking back to the west to a 3.5 foot target. And again, there is no obstruction, for either of the sight lines, from those two respective driveways. And again, those are existing conditions, but our proposed development, particularly the proximity of building, 1, which is roughly 3 feet off the property line, does not impede the sight line in either case. So there's no change in, the conditions of pulling out of either roadway based on the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. And I don't disagree with Mr. Murphy that people drive faster on that road. When I went out there yesterday to look at Saxon, I had somebody pass me just to the east of Knollwood, probably doing 45 to 50. I was just waiting for a crash as they went over the hill, but I didn't hear one. But I was honestly shocked that somebody was driving that fast on that road. And the only thing I can suggest is maybe the police need to sit, on Saxon and or Knollwood with their radar out. I think they would make the town, quite honestly, a lot of money, with that. We also submitted all of the information from the blaster, Dave Ambrosia, who will be doing this work also. It's basically the same information for Taylor Avenue. It's the same, process. The difference here is that we do have, some soil over the rock, which will also, buffer the, the drilling when it's done, because the rock dirt is left in place, for that. I also sent Jeremy an email, which I'm just digging up right now. There will not be a crusher on the site. I spoke to my client on this. Just bear with me. I'm just trying to find the right email. Yeah, there will be no crusher used on the site. Mr. Duario will take all of the excavated material that they do not need from the site. It will be trucked to his yard, which is up on Payne Road in Danbury. Basically, it will be around, I think it was 655, truckloads, to remove all this material, from the site. To Mr. Diorio. So it will be excavated here. It will be loaded onto trucks. It will be taken to his yard for processing, and there'll be no processing of the material on site. So that was submitted to Jeremy, and it should be part of part of the record also. So that's all I have. I'm happy to answer additional questions from the commission or public. Let's get the general site plan up in case there are any questions. So.
Should we go to the public first? So, if you have a question, please state your name, your address, so that we have it on record. Don't be shy. Come on up.
Sorry, 1 second.
Right. So we've had an experience over the past couple of meetings where the length of the meeting goes beyond reasonable. 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, people get tired. Some people get irritable. So I'm asking everybody to try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. And on Congress, you get 5. We're not Congress. You get 3.
I'm politically incorrect anyway, so.
Well, that makes a bunch of us.
Yeah. Okay, Scott Burke, before Reservoir Street. I'm glad that Mr. Trinkus got to deal with what we deal with every day. I'm also inviting him to my house, sit on my porch with me, have a coffee, watch the show, and then try to back out of my driveway. Because there's a lot of times I can't stop on that road and back into my driveway so that I can pull out safely in the morning. I have to pull in because I'm in the middle of 45-mile-an-hour speedway. When I back up out of my driveway, I'm looking, that green flag is behind me. I cannot see. They put a wall up at a house there, I cannot see. And as far as 655 truckloads out, that's over 1,350 trips up and down that road with heavy trucks. It's not just the neighborhood that around that that's going to be a problem. The entire street's not going to be affected by this. That's a lot of truck traffic on that road. And I know the sign's missing at the beginning. It says no through trucks. I understand they're not through trucks. Those trucks, a lot of noise, a lot of weight, will interfere with the infrastructure. As far as the water issue, this afternoon, my neighbor has a twofold problem at 78. She has the water coming from that hill through my property, which was done by design to water the field when it was my farm. She now has Beaver Dam on the other side, which she has been in touch with Public Works to see if they can rectify the situation. The fire department's there pumping 6 to 8 inches of water out right now. But for him to say that the water that's going to go to the east, because that's the natural slope, is right down to the 2 storm drains by 58 Reservoir Street that dump into the brook that goes behind Saxon. So for him to say that it's not going to adversely affect, yes, it will, especially with the storms we've been getting lately. I'm good for now.
Thank you.
Good evening. I haven't been able to make any other meetings. I'm going to speak as fast as I can, but everything I have to say is very important. My name is Diane Coffin, and I live at 75 Reservoir Street. I've lived there for 45 years. In reviewing the site development plan on the town website, I have several serious concerns about its development. Didn't my good friend Carol Murphy, who sold the property to you, tell me that the understanding you made with her was to build a one-family house? Why did you, the developers, change your mind? I understand the application you're putting forth is for 3 buildings with a total of 6 units, 2 of which are marked as affordable housing. My way of thinking is that to include a 3rd building based on the fact that it's affordable housing does not do much to help the affordable housing percentage that's required by the town of Bethel to satisfy. Why add the 3rd building at all? Why not 2 if you are not going to do a one-family house, as you told Mr. Murphy? In your News Times article in March, it was stated that the property was quote unquote run down. To my way of thinking, over the last 45 years that I've lived there, when Bob Murphy was alive, that corner was maintained immaculately and was a very appealing piece of natural undeveloped property. It is you who have not maintained the property since it was sold to you. Now on to my main concerns. Safety of the persons at Reservoir Street. There have been 2 accidents in the last 2 years. The first at Reservoir Street and Norwood Drive, and more recently, just a few feet away from Norwood Drive at Saxon Road and Reservoir Street. I might add here, I have not written this down, but across from my house at 75 Reservoir Street is Scott Murphy's house. And right at that berm, there is a blind spot for people coming from Danbury. If you're at Norwood and you're looking left, you don't see a car. You look right, a car from the blind spot is already at Norwood. Because it's a speeding, because there isn't that much room. So I appreciate your site plan, but you haven't taken into account that there's a blind spot there. The safety of persons traveling on Reservoir. There have been 2 accidents. All right, I ran over that. Why? Although the Bethel police are very often sitting in their cruisers catching speeders on this straight stretch of road, they cannot be there 24/7. If there were speed bumps, which there are other places in our town, they're very effective at slowing down cars. This would help, but it's a moot point right now. The speed bumps on Mountainville and Danbury are very effective in slowing down traffic, as is on Bethpage Road in Bethel, Oxford Road in Bethel, and recently a speed table and another speed bump on Whittlesey Drive in Bethel to deter speeders in front of the high school property. I and my neighbors recommend speed bumps on Reservoir Street. The speeding, especially from the stop sign at Bethpage to the end of Reservoir Street at the Danbury line, are a mandatory item needed to deter speeding and potential more accidents. If the 3 proposed buildings are approved, the line of sight looking left as you go out of Norwood Drive looks to be further compromised by the 3rd closest building to Reservoir Street. And what if, for instance, people in that unit decide to put up rhododendron bushes or azaleas? It'll further compromise the sightline. The line of sight is the major reason for the we've had at this end of Reservoir Street in the last 2 years. On your grading erosion page, it shows where right at the end of Norwood Drive, there's going to be debris from excavating and blasting stored there, which will add to bad line of sight coming down from the end of Reservoir Street toward Norwood when a car is trying to turn in either direction. I realize that this is a temporary thing, but it is going quite a while for all those trucks to take the debris away. The drainage. We've had so many heavy rains and flash floods in the last years, perhaps due to climate change. I'm questioning if enough drainage storm drains are provided, especially for Mrs. Skolin at 69 Reservoir Street, who has a downsloping driveway directly in front of the proposed construction, so she does not end up with water in her garage. As well, the people living on the right side of Saxon Road, which you just proposed to mitigate the flooding that they have. But this application really doesn't have anything to do with fixing Saxon roads. Is it possible that these flash floods cannot be taken care of by the drainage system you proposed, adding to their flooding conditions? A friend of mine on Saxon, after 3 incidents of flooded first floors, moved to another state. Blasting. I read on the narrative page, blasting shall be used to remove the rock to a point 2 feet below the finished ground elevations. I also read bedrock becomes shallower as one goes up the slope. During the building of the Toll Brothers development at 77 to 79 Reservoir Street, I was the closest house to the blast site, which I called the summer of hell. Every morning when the whistle sounded, there was 1 minute before the blast. My house shook every blast, and stuff in my house and my neighbor's house at 73 Reservoir Street fell off our walls. Across the street on the Murphy property at 74 Reservoir Street, large stones from the old farm walls bounced out of the walls after many blasts. After the blasting was done, we found one of our stone walls outside our front door had heaved rocks. This was caused by the blasting so close. My husband was an architect builder, and he was the one who built our house and built all the stone walls, and believe me, it was not due to his lack of knowing what he was doing. The Toll Brothers came and blasted 25 years after we were in the house. That was the only time that any of our stone walls heaved rocks, and we haven't had any problems since. So we were sure that it was due to the blasting. Fly rock is not allowed to land on anyone's property from blasting. I came home one day after work, and my neighbors came running over to tell me that they had heard rocks pinging off my barn wall. We went to look, and there were different sized fly rock from the back of my property all the way up to the back of my barn and my house. With my kids, such as those who now reside at 71 Reservoir Street, were playing in the yard at that time, they would have gotten pounded on the head. Are there going to be seismographs used? And where will they be placed if this application should be accepted? Norwood Drive buildings were built around 1972 by a developer. Now, 53 years later, are the foundations and the walls going to be able to withstand the blasting so close to their homes? Lastly, for consideration by the builder, Toll Brothers in 2002 initially proposed 127 affordable units. After years of the town and Toll Brothers going back and forth on the project, the development reduced its proposal to 62 luxury homes, which gentrified the neighborhood in a tasteful, acceptable manner. Since it's been stated that there is less bedrock at the upper end of the property that you have bought and are going to build on, why not consider the one-family house which this land is currently zoned for? A one-family house would solve the issue of blasting excavation where there's less bedrock, less truckloads to remove the debris on this narrow, heavily trafficked road, less debris to add to a bad line of sight that already exists, as runoff from the impervious surfaces such as shingle roofs, paved driveways, and will not detract from the value of the homes surrounding this development that add to it. I think given the number of heavy truckloads of debris being removed, consideration should be given to possible damage to the old pipes, sewer, and water. Will the repeated heavy truckloads cause damage to the pipes? In summary, another development of the same kind as the refit tube across on Nova Drive, where the units are crammed together, creates a lot of issues that detract from the quality, safety of the neighborhood as it now exists, and from the life of the taxpayers who are already living there. Respectfully, Diane Coppola. I'm going to give you 2 copies of my reaction to this. Thank you very much.
I'll take the copies. I'll make sure that they get them. Hey,
So just, most of you are familiar with this. We gather all of the comments from the public, then we allow the commission members to make comments, and then we ask Mr. Trinkus, engineer for the project, to answer the questions. And he has answers for not all, but a lot of your questions and your observations. So with that, I'd like to ask who else would like to come to the public. Thank you.
Hello, Gabriela Hernandez, 114 Nola Drive. I would love to hear more about what sustainable practices or materials are being employed in this proposed build, and what is the plan to minimize the detrimental impacts to the surrounding nature. The forests that are there, the trees that are there. What the plans are to minimize the impact on wildlife and such in that. And lastly, if you can confirm whether or not the lot on the top of Knollwood and the cul-de-sac is going to be used at all during this proposed build. And if so, I ask that whenever there would be blasting, that we are notified. In the past, it has not been any notification, and like you eloquently described, it shakes everything. And I also agree with your proposal for the speed bump on Rescue Arm. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Scott Murphy, 74 Reservoir. I had asked a couple times about the effect of the blasting on my grandson who has a traumatic brain injury. I still haven't heard any answers to how that is affecting him.
We'll hopefully get answers from Mr. Trinkus on that and other issues that were brought up at the last meeting. Anybody else from the public like to make a comment?
you do have a hand raised online, Tyler Pollock.
Mr. Pollock?
Oh, wait, there we go. Sorry. Hi, this is Tyler at 33 Saxon Road. How you guys doing today?
Right, how are you?
I was in there last time. I spoke to you guys in length about the flooding here. Did you guys ever get your independent thing you asked for about the flooding?
We have not yet received any report from an independent engineer on the hydraulics of the overall site. And the storm management for the site. Now, gotta remember, that's 2 weeks ago. And there is confusion as to exactly what the commission voted on. We will address that later on tonight. But to answer your question directly, we do not have a report for stormwater management as of tonight.
Okay. So I'm going to reiterate something, and I don't know if it was necessarily brought up. I did leave. I was a little frustrated with the proceedings, especially since your guys' own department is on record with me. Maybe it was 2 years ago and the guy doesn't work at the department anymore, saying that you guys should not be selling homes or building in this area due to the flooding issues. And that's your guys' own department. that I went to deal with the flooding issues when I first started moving, or when I first moved here and noticed how bad the flooding issues are here. So your own department said this. He was the head of the department. I thought I forgot his name. Somebody mentioned it last time I was there, and you guys are still building in this area, which makes no sense to me, or trying to. Also, the issue with the Toll Brothers, how they were supposed to build a retention pond, and how it was acknowledged that the retention pond was never done correctly. And since we are on record saying that it isn't done correctly, we still haven't pushed them to do anything to fix it, to make it correctly. Now, what are we going to do when, and by the way, we've had flooding here when it's not a 100-year storm. And it's water that's being dumped into these drains that's going into everybody's house. And guess what? It ends up backing up or going into the sewers where we have fecal matter going into our homes. And you guys want to build more in this area, and we still haven't figured out any of this stuff yet. And I have toilet paper all through my backyard, people's fecal matter in my backyard. My neighbors have it in their homes. I have it all over my deck, in my garage. My neighbor has it in his house. My other neighbor has it in his house 2 feet deep. And these aren't 100-year floods. And like I said, the other 2 houses that you guys built, and it's been acknowledged by the old building department, that they tied into the drainage system that, guess what, goes to my backyard, goes to everybody's house back here. So every time it drains off and you have that runoff, guess what? It comes back here. Now you're going to build pretty much across the street from where those 2 properties were, and you're going to add to it, but you're not going to do anything to stop it. Like, until something gets changed here, and you know what, there is a whole traffic issue, and I get that, and I understand what you guys, a lot of people are fighting about the traffic and the shaking of the homes, and I really truly do understand. If there was a fair way of doing something to where people weren't inconvenienced with more flooding, I get it. That place, once you sell it, it's out of your hands. You don't care about the flooding anymore because it's done. It's a quick buck for people. But unfortunately, the people who live here, who have kids that go to school, that are pillars of the community, people who've lived here since they were born, on this street still are getting flooded. And this has been an issue that you guys openly admitted has been an issue that has not stopped being an issue. And until we figure this out or do something to help this community out, we shouldn't be building in something that should be or could be adding, or not could be, will definitely be adding to the flooding issue here. And the fact that we're still talking about this until we figure out the rest of it makes no sense. I mean, everybody's upset. There's a picture of me kayaking around my street. And guess what? There's poop in that street, in the middle. And that's in people's homes. And we're still talking about developing homes when we haven't figured out the flooding issue. I'm sorry. I'm really confused as to what we're doing here. And I know somebody last time mentioned last time the rule of whatever, some code that states the 10%, and that was explained. And as long as it doesn't hazard, I forgot the exact wordage, but I brought it up last time. As long as it doesn't negatively affect us in the community, this is definitely going to negatively affect us again. So I really hope that you guys really address this issue before any other building is considered in the area. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have another hand raised online, Rachel Bowers. Oh, she's her hand up. Rachel, did you want to say something?
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. I'm also on Saxon Road. I brought up some environmental issues last meeting as well, but I'd also like to bring up some traffic issues as well. Anytime we have more people, like guests or additional cars that are parked on our street, the street's not big enough to handle parked cars, and people are doing that. And when this happens, when guests come over and park their cars on the street, emergency vehicles can't get through, delivery trucks can't get through. So there's no mail sometimes, there's no garbage pickup. And again, it's a huge hazard if there was a fire or emergency that needed to happen. We actually have to call the police to have the police come and move the cars for us. Or what we have to do is we have to go around to everybody's house. We kind of knock. We also know when people are having parties, and we can be respectful of that. But if there's going to be additional residents across the street who will be potentially parking on this block, it's going to be a huge issue. And it will also be a traffic issue because we're already having traffic issues. As you said, you stood on Saxon when you came around. It's a blind corner, and with hedges coming, if we have people parking on that corner or even further down the street, you're not going to be able to get vehicles down here. So how are you going to make sure that that's okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Tyler still has his hand raised. I'm not sure if he has another comment or question, or
I'm just an idiot. I can't figure out how to put my hand down.
make sure that has something that we just didn't miss you again. That's okay. I'll lower it for you.
I just want to add, I guess I reiterate all the questions that Tyler proposed specifically around the flooding, because flooding is definitely an issue. So I missed all the previous meetings, so hearing it laid out that way, it's definitely a concern for the health and safety of the neighborhood.
So Rachel Bowers did raise her hand, but if you'd like to go to commission, because it is almost 8 o'clock. So if you'd like to go to commission comments, and then we can go back to public.
Sure, why don't we do that, and let me assure you that none of this is being swept under the rug. I have some comments that I'll make when it's my turn. So with that, let me go with the commission. Bob, do you have some input or comments that you would like to share?
No, I'm good with it so far.
Okay, Diane?
I'm just going to bring up some of the things Stephen and deal with it later. We had asked about the traffic study being done. I just wondered what the schedule is on having that done. Not just in relation to the number of cars from the proposed 3 units or 6 units, but on the road and the traffic situation. I'm not sure if they look at how many accidents have been done or where they are located or anything else, but I think that should be part of the traffic study. I was wondered where the drains are going that you have proposed. Does it go into their areas? Will that make that worse? When you did that sightline situation, are you including the height of the building in that? I'm not really sure. When I look at that, but you don't have to answer me right this second. It just seems to me like the height of that building is going to make a difference in the sightline. And when Jeremy dealt with Matt at the police department, looking at that, he was looking at how people coming out of Knollwood and making a left, making that situation. He wasn't looking at, from the emails anyway, from what I understood, it wasn't looking at the Scott's house, which is the red home, making a right and being able to see past that height of that house. I know last time we said it seemed like it would be better if you had 2 unit or 2 buildings instead of 3, because of the distance to the road, which is 15 feet or whatever, 14 or whatever, that we had to do on the site there when we did the walkthrough, because it had been put in a different spot. And my concern is, I know you said the snow removal is 6 feet or whatever it is, but I know the health department letter talked about being concerned about the snow coming up against the home And I know that you talked about doing some extra drainage there. And then when I asked about snow removal last time, you said that you would not necessarily truck it totally off the site, but you'd put it in the back of the property. And I'm just concerned about that distance and the drainage on the site itself and also with the neighbors. And the other thing was on the blasting. I did not see on the Google Drive the actual blasting, but I saw the safety data sheets from Dino Noble Incorporated, Salt Lake City, Utah. And they were dated March 18, 2015 and October 12, 2018. So I just don't understand. Maybe you can explain to me how that works with what you're doing. Are you using these people? And I guess that's pretty much what I have, other than, what I said last time.
No, sir.
So let me go to staff. I'll reserve my comments to the end, and I'll try to wrap everything up. One second. Amanda? We'll go to, Jeremy, you're on.
Yeah, the only thing that I would ask, and I put it in my report to you all, is just a clarification of the motion that you made 2 weeks ago. We were moving full steam ahead with bringing on a third-party consultant to review the stormwater plan for the site. The project engineer and I had a conversation. He understood the motion differently than I did. I went back and watched the recording from 2 weeks ago and realized that it's really not entirely clear what the commission is looking for there. So the question is the commission looking for a study of the overall drainage in the area, which would not be something that the applicant would be forced to undertake? But that'd be something that the town would need to look at overall in terms of Saxon Woods and, the overall condition. Or is the commission looking for a third-party engineer to review the stormwater management plan submitted as part of the application to ensure that this site will not add to flooding downstream? And there's an important difference between those two. The applicant did submit a stormwater management plan, and there are stormwater management details on the site plans, and SLR, the town's consulting engineer, did review that and issued comments on those stormwater plans. And so that's really the question. Did you want a third engineer to review the stormwater plans for the site, or were you looking for a larger scope project that would not be a part of this application?
And the reality is that we cannot hold this applicant responsible for an existing condition. If this project gets abandoned 100%, nothing gets built here, continues to grow, we would continue to have flooding in those streets. And that's a separate issue. And I can tell you that from personal experience because I'm going through that in my own street now. And we have gone to the town and asked them to appropriate funds for an independent study to help us with the drainage, because we had 7 or 8 houses that were flooded, in addition to having a number of other houses in the same street. So those are our problems, but that is not part of this applicant's responsibility. The responsibility is that this applicant and their development not increase any additional runoff or aggravate any condition that's there today. So, Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, what we have authority to do is to have their proposed stormwater management program reviewed by an independent consultant, but not to the extent of going down Saxon Woods or any of the other street. That cannot be charged to this development.
That's correct.
Just want to make sure we understand what the rules are and what the limitations of liability are.
No, that's good, and I appreciate that clarification. So we will, so I can take it then that the motion was to hire a third consulting engineer to review the drainage plan for this site.
Correct.
Okay.
And part B of that, which is not related to anything that we're doing today, is and I can give you the names of the people in my street that have spearheaded this. Namely Matt Knickerbocker, which is a name we all know, on going to the town and getting them to say, hey, we have a problem here with the basic infrastructure that needs to be addressed. And you as a town need to take it because we're constantly being flooded. All right. Have I skipped anything else, Jeremy, that
No, that's it for me. Thank you.
Now, typically at this time, what we do is we pass it back to our applicants engineer and have them address most of the questions, which he has. But I do want to remind Mr. Trinkus, what are the open issues? We have asked for a traffic study. As part of that study, we'd like to have some reassurance of what are the blind spots in the line of sight. Number two, there was a concern with snow management and how it was described to us 2 weeks ago. I know you will cover the number of trucks and the amount of cubic yards and as part that need to be removed from the site. And as part of that, I need you also to explain what are the latest technologies and procedures that will be implemented in the blasting, because when everybody hears the word blasting, we go back to envisioning a blanket made out of truck tires and a big explosion and smoke coming through the blanket and debris flying in all directions, and that is no longer what's being done. Good thing that we don't have a crusher here either. One last item, Mr. Trinkus, I want to make sure that you cover is the fact that this application will carry with it what is called a condition assessment for neighbors that goes and surveys your home, your property, and establishes a baseline of where you are today. This is a common practice, and Mr. Trinkus will take you through a lot more detail than I will, but it includes photographs, videos, descriptions, legal property lines, etc., and identifies where you are today. So if the blasting, in fact, causes any damage or any deviations from your current conditions, there's a documentation that ties it directly to the blast. Those are my comments. I'm trying to put things here and as much of a summary as I can. And I'm going to ask Mr. Trinkus first to address all of these issues as I have enumerated.
Okay, I will be happy to. Let's talk on the blind spots first. What I've submitted to the commission and went over earlier, there is no blind spot, whether looking from Knollwood west or from Mr. Murphy's driveway looking east. The unit duplex number one, which is the north one, does not interfere with either sight line. So there is no blind spots, period. There's no debate over that. The building is not in the sight distance. It's going to be a lawn area north of the building, similar to what it is today, probably more maintained lawn than kind of the little bit of overgrown, meadow it was on the sidewalk. But there is no blind spots. Snow storage, there is space between each of the driveways where, you can plow it. Obviously, we have not had a normal snow year in, 13, 14 years, quite honestly. I believe we're going to be due sooner or later. If we get one of our bad years, the snow can be, taken from, with a payloader, and, we have a very flat backyard behind these units, well behind the right-of-way line where snow could be stockpiled or it can simply be taken off-site. This would be no different than, quite honestly, any other, project in the town of Bethel. That's what happens.
Mr. Trinkus, but the distance between the buildings,
It's not between the buildings, it's between the driveways. It varies between about 12 feet to up to 15 foot between the actual driveways. So, that's where the snow could go, simply by plowing it. And again, this is a common occurrence at any of the homes, and sometimes a lot of the commercial complexes in town. If they run out of a place to put it, it's taken off site. That's what they do. I mean, it can't be discharged. It can't be dumped in a river. DEP forbids that, but it would be placed somewhere else on the site, and allowed to simply melt come springtime. That's just how you handle it. Going back to this third-party review, I've done enough projects in Bethel. This system is designed fully in compliance with your regulations, which require a 0 increase from 2-year up through the 100-year storm event. That's what this system meets. We've submitted a stormwater report that clearly shows it. This was reviewed by SLR, who has reviewed many other projects. And Todd Ritchie did not have any complaints about the system. There might have been a couple clarifications, which we responded to when I had his comments. Quite honestly, it was my interpretation at the last meeting that the commission was really looking to have somebody look at the Saxon Woods flooding, because that's why I volunteered also to take a look myself as an engineer to give you my thoughts, but not to review this. I will object to paying for a third-party review when you've already had one professional engineer that is your town consultant that's reviewed and signed off on this particular plan. Staying with the stormwater side of it, we have a 0 increase requirement on our site. Every other home along Knollwood Drive and Reservoir and any of the other roads that may drain to that wetland system on Saxon Woods do not have stormwater systems. They were not required at that time. And quite honestly, when it rains, the roof areas, the driveways, patios, whatever, is all being conveyed to, the stormwater systems on Knollwood or Reservoir, and pretty much quickly getting right to that wetland system on Saxon. That's, there's been no requirement. So there's no 0 increase or reduction in peak rate from all these other properties that drain to Saxon. We will have a stormwater system. The system is designed to throttle the flow back and extend the flow duration out over a longer period of time, where the current runoff, when it rains, it's becoming runoff instantaneously and getting into the pipe system, getting into Saxon Woods. Our system, water goes into this detention system, has to go through the gallery systems, and then is metered out via an outlet control structure, which throttles the flow down before releasing it to the drainage system. So the peak discharge from this system will actually be about 12 hours after the peak of the actual rainfall event occurs, when most of the other runoff has already gone on its merry way, downstream. Regarding the blasting on Toll Brothers, I can't comment on it, but if they were blasting where, and I believe that, residents, if you got rocks in your yard or you got shook, that blasting was not done in conformance with the standards of the state of Connecticut administered by the fire marshal. In this case, we submitted everything that we had done on Taylor Avenue, because it's the same situation as far as blasting. Mats will be used, but nowadays they set these charges off on microseconds to crack the rock in place, and then it is dug out with an excavator. It's no more of the, I don't know if it was Mr. Murphy that said, the big bang where, the mats jumped up and you had the smoke. This is cracking it in place, and then it is simply dug out with an excavator. The blasting code, which the fire marshal administers, we do, assuming homeowners will let the blaster in their property, we can't just trespass, but a pre-blast survey, an assessment of their home, driveway, other things, is 250 feet from the limits of our blasting, which on our site plan would be the southern end of our development where the rock cut is, out to Mr. Murphy's property line, to the Knollwood Drive property line, to Reservoir Street, and 250 foot beyond that is the limit of pre-blast surveys. And as the chair pointed out, the purpose of this is to have a baseline. So if you look at a house and there's no sheetrock cracks, there's no foundation cracks, there's no nothing, and if after blasting all of a sudden there's a couple of sheetrock cracks, well, yes, then the blaster is responsible for paying for the repairing of that. That's the purpose of the pre-blast survey, is to create the baseline. As far as seismograph locations, they can be put on our property lines, Mr. Murphy's property line and the edge of Knollwood Drive. The blasting can be done where you will not have a reading of a shake at those points. That's how these guys do it. I had a project years ago in Woodbury where the person put a well next to an extended right-of-way for a road with the hope that it would preclude the road from ever being extended by his house. And we had the blast there, and he gave the blaster permission to put the seismograph on the well cap, just set it right on the cap. It was a 0 reading the whole time, even when they blasted. So blasting can be done where there is no shaking, but the seismographs, to be most effective, can be put at our property boundaries, and if they're kept at 0, there's no shaking beyond the property. As far as that goes, it really does sound that Toll Brothers did not follow the protocol for whatever reason. I wasn't involved in that project. As far as that goes, the zoning here is double R10, the Bethel zoning. This allows a duplex house. This property is a combined 2 parcels, A and B, of about 3/4 of an acre in total, but there are 2 lots here. We can do a duplex on each of the lots. One would be down in front, and the other one would be up on top of this hill, which is all wooded right now. So that would all be cleared, and that would also be blasted to get a level area to build up there. So there'd be a lot more site disturbance actually to build 1 unit on each parcel. As proposed, above to the south of the rock cut, where that long strip of land goes to the south, kind of more or less parallel to Knollwood, that property is going to remain as is. There's no tree clearing there. There's no excavation. It remains exactly as is. Whatever, and that's where the woods are. This front part of the site, as we saw on the site walk, is really overgrown brush. There's not really any significant trees here. A lot of invasive species, but it's the wooded area is at the top of the hill, which we're not touching by this development. But this is a 2-family zone under the Bethel zoning regs, so we can do a duplex on each parcel, and that's 4 units in total. This plan, when I started working for the applicant, I did many different layouts. They met with Beth numerous times. At one plan, we had a unit down below. We had a unit up on top of the hill, both six 1-bedroom units. We had 12 units potentially on this site, and we're 50% of that. This plan was what the former planner, Beth Cavagna, in working with Mr. Diorio and his son, Mike, this is what she preferred to see. She wanted to mirror the duplexes that were across the street, built by the applicant. And that's how we got into this plan. We're not being greedy. 2 units over, we're asking for 6 units total, where I could do 4 simply as of right. So it's not a greedy plan. And yes, I agree, there'll be 1 60% unit, 1 80% unit under 8-30G. 8-30G, quite honestly, with the way it's set up of 30% set aside, you're always increasing your market share of units. And quite honestly, no town will ever get up to the 10% unless people do more than 30%. But that's the requirement, under the law for us. This project will not increase the flooding behind Saxon because we have the stormwater management system. We're also addressing the water quality of the runoff, which again is not being, addressed by any of the current drainage. Regarding Tyler's comment about fecal matter and/or toilet paper, that's coming from the sanitary sewer system. What that tells me, if that's overflowing, is the sanitary sewer system is subject to in what we call I&I, or inflow and infiltration, where either the manholes are leaking, where stormwater is entering the manhole or entering the pipes and adding to the flow rate of the sanitary sewer material. And then if it becomes, if there's a lot of I&I, the system gets overwhelmed and surcharges, and that's when stuff will flow out of the manhole tops. There's been a problem in parts of Fairfield on some projects that I've done where, we've had to upgrade lines, because, or seal, actually what they do is they put a plastic liner through the pipe to seal off the, inflow from the ground into the sanitary sewer. But if that's occurring, that's a sanitary sewer issue, and it should be brought up to the Public Utilities Commission, because that's obviously a major problem. Parking on roads is, quite honestly, illegal. Probably on a road like Saxon, which is a dead end, people do park along there, but parking on Knollwood or Reservoir, it's illegal, and you're going to get ticketed. I mean, our driveways, we have 2 spaces in each unit has a garage. We have a space outside of it, and there's additionally 2 other you could put 2 or 3 other cars on each driveway, on our site. But parking on the road, I mean, again, that's a police issue. That's an enforcement issue. It doesn't have anything to do with this, this development. But, if people are going to park illegally, quite honestly, there's not much you can do about it except tell them that, they're parking illegally, and maybe call, the police in that regard. I think there was, I think the lady from 114 Knollwood, talked about the trees and the wildlife, which I think I addressed, saying that southern end is going to remain as is, which is wooded, and that is the habitat area. So that's going to, be undeveloped up on top of the hill. Just look here, my notes. The comment by Tyler again that you can't allow development, because of the current flooding situation. That's that's not enforceable, quite honestly. Maybe somebody made that comment, but our site is high and dry. Our site has a stormwater management system that does not increase the flow rate that goes into that drainage system. That's the standard that every development project in the town of Bethel goes through. Whether it's affordable housing, even a single family lot would have to have a stormwater management system. But again, we're not in a floodplain. And again, I am sympathetic to the issues on Saxon. I looked at it, and it quite honestly should have never been built there. That would be my professional opinion, way back when. But that happened years and years ago, probably close to 60 years ago, if not longer. But again, this site is high and dry. This has a stormwater management system that meets the town standards. Regarding the traffic study, we're adding 2 units over what as of right is. And again, I spoke with Kermit Waugh, who's the traffic engineer. He honestly he goes, there's nothing I can really look at here. I'm happy to look at accident data and report back, but I think one of the neighbors, a lady who lived, I think, across the street, said there were 2 accidents in the past 2 years here. I'm happy to look at that. But again, we don't have a blind spot. There's adequate existing site distances which are not being compromised by the proposed development. So there is no safety issue from that regard. A traffic study to show that 2 additional cars in the morning, 2 cars during the peak hour, that's 1 car every 30 minutes. I mean, common sense tells you that is not going to impact the traffic flow on either Knollwood or Reservoir Street. But I'm happy to look at the accident data from the police department, and report that back to the commission. But a full traffic study is really unwarranted here. The issue here is, does the proposed development impact the site distances from Knollwood or from Mr. Murphy's driveway? And the answer by the revised plans and the cross sections is no. And the cross sections are based on both the existing and proposed grading. So we're not like looking at the conditions today and where I may be raising the grade later on. The sight line cross section take that grading into account. So we're looking at what the developed condition will be. And it still is acceptable in all cases. I think Diane had the question about, the blasting information on the products. That's the products that these guys use. I mean, blasting products have not really changed over the years. They've actually got perhaps more efficient. And again, it was described for the Taylor Avenue, which I can submit that information to Jeremy, of the blasting protocol here. The rock here is more shaly, and actually may be able to be dug out until we actually start digging. We don't know if it can be, ripped out, but based on the test pits that we dug 3 of them going up the center of the site, basically. And yes, the ledge goes up, gets shallower as you go up the hill. I think the uppermost hole was only about 4 feet down to bedrock. When you get up to the top of the hill, that bedrock is within a couple feet of the ground. I took a crowbar when I first looked at the site and just walked around and banged it in. And, I was resonating off bedrock. You can tell with a crowbar when you hit something very solid, it just vibrates completely. So the rock is, shallower at the top of the hill than down below, as far as that goes. The detention pond at Toll Brothers is west of the site. I mean, it drains onto, I assume, to a catch basin on Reservoir Street, west of Mr. Murphy, but possibly in front of his neighbor offhand. I know that area is flat. There obviously is a basin there. You can see it on the Bethel GIS, but how it was designed and what it was supposed to be designed as, I can't really comment on it. I think if there are concerns, that again, you should have Todd Ritchie from SLR with perhaps Eric Swenson of DPW, who's also an engineer, to go out and look at that basin to see if it is in compliance with the approved plans. But that water is also draining, to the west or to the south. It's not coming towards our site. And just again to clarify and make clear that I think Mr. Murphy talked about the runoff from this site that drains behind his house. Yes, that top of that hill does drain to the west. There's a pretty steep slope down on the back of his property, and then goes towards his neighbor further to the west. And I know, having driven on the road in the past, that it's very flat down there. And when the water comes down the hill, again, it sits and it ponds because there's no grade line to tell the water to keep moving. So when it hits flat land, that's where the water stops along that, as far as that goes. So again, I'm happy to give an extension to look at the police accidents. But again, the sight lines, we're not changing the existing conditions on Knollwood or Reservoir. The development does not impact the sight lines, and we're fronting simply on Knollwood. And that's again what was desired by your former planner. Was we had 1 unit originally facing Reservoir and 2 facing Knollwood, and she preferred the alignment of just all facing on Knollwood. And that's how we came up with this plan. So again, I think I've covered the comments, but if there's additional ones, I'm happy to address them.
Thank you.
It's 8:15. I suggest that Beth Cavagna has her hand raised, that you let her speak, and then you are continuing this to the next meeting, so everyone else will have a chance to speak again.
Right, Mr. Trinket just said he would.
Yes.
Yeah, I said I would submit an extension to Jeremy.
Thank you. Beth?
You're muted, Beth. Yes, there is. Beth? You're muted. Yeah, I suggest continuing to the next meeting.
Correct. As a commission, we'll handle all of our comments. documents into a single piece of correspondence. Oh, yeah, oh,
The fire marshal did already address the blasting and how there's no signs of it affecting anything. So if you want, we can bring him back, or you can look at it, because he did address it, Taylor.
so just a general comment for everybody here. We're looking to extend this meeting to the July 8th
Yes.
meeting, at which time we hope to have answers to a number of our questions we don't have, reports, etc. At that time, Mr. Trinkus, you had offered back on 53 Taylor to have your blasting expert attend this commission, not this one today, but another one, and to provide information that I think would be reassuring to the public for them to understand how the new blasting technologies work. I know you said that you're hopeful that a lot of the rock will be able to be removed via bulldozer of some sort, but could you please also consider having that specialty present at the meeting, either via the internet or in person?
Mr. Chairman, I will ask Mr. Ambrosia if he can attend by Zoom that night.
Great.
Just, to go back a little bit on Taylor, there were specific questions the commission had, which then I asked Jeremy if there were any additional, I gave him an email saying, these are the notes I had. I said, is there any other issues that the commission, asked for? And the answer came back, no, these were the issues, which then I went to Mr. Ambrosia with the questions. He gave me the answers, which I put in a memo. But I will ask him about attending on the 8th.
Right.
Remotely to just go over that, to give you, I guess, a comfort level. I mean,
Right.
Again, blasting, growing up, there were homes in my neighborhood in Reading that were blasted, and yeah, they, loaded up the hole. We stood quarter mile away, and giant bang, and the mats were lifted, 10 feet in the ground, which is a 9-year-old thought was pretty cool at the time. But blasting today is far cry from that. It's
The purpose of having Mr. Ambrosia attend either via Zoom or Google Meets is to provide the public a more in-depth understanding of what's involved, what are the techniques, and that we're not talking about rocks flying up in the air like a volcano.
right. Yep, I understand. I will reach out to him.
Right. So with that, our recommendation is to extend this to the July 8th meeting. And then I see here that Paul Shanley,
He's recused from this application, so,
no, but for the rest of the meeting.
well, we can ask after this part is done.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I think Beth did unmute herself, so I'm not sure if she wanted to say something.
I do. Yes, I do. I'm so
All
sorry.
right, Beth, we
I cannot
can't hear
hear
you.
Can you hear me?
No.
Barely.
No.
No,
No.
No.
No. You can't hear me.
No. No, it's not. It's not. Are you on your phone or the computer?
I'm on the phone.
There you go. That's
Oh,
better.
I apologize tremendously. I am so not used to this, as you are well aware. I just wanted to point out a few things to you historically and significant to the application. I apologize, Mr. Chairman, that I was not able to follow protocol, and I had no intentions of doing this. But I just want to explain something in regards to a few items. In regards to drainage, to request a third-party drainage review at this point is not appropriate, only because we have a good engineer who has reviewed the drainage. I think that you are thinking more in terms of, for example, a septic system. On another 830G application, the health department is responsible for a septic review. And so therefore they asked for a third-party review to help them with it. So as far as drainage pertaining to this particular property, I do not think that you should consider anything outside of what Todd Ritchie has given you. In regards to drainage, dealing with Saxon Road and things of that nature, historically, I want to point out to you that the property across the street was approximately, I think, 6 acres. It was called Oven Rock Partners. It was an 830G application. There were 26 units proposed, and there was extensive drainage studies done during that application process, which ended up being, I believe it was 3 lots in total after negotiations with the applicant. So my recommendation to you is to have the Department of Public Works, or the Eric is also the town engineer, review those in regards to what is proposed to this, to see what the effect would be. Because the Department of Public Works over the last 15 to 20 years has received many complaints regarding the drainage on Saxon Road and also on Bethpage Drive. Granted, I will agree with Mr. Trinkus that a lot of the properties involved in those developments, portions of them are located within the flood zone. I do believe that it's important for you to look at that and to give reassurance to the applicant and to the property owners along Saxon Road that this will not add to the existing drainage system issues that exist down there. I do believe that this can be handled in-house, and it also can be handled after the close of the public hearing. I know this has been going on for a long time. I know Mr. Trinkus also has mentioned that the applicant had worked with me. And again, because of the history involved with the area, I will agree with Mr. Trinkus that I felt that this was the most appropriate development in regards to this, only because one of the times that we were doing pre-application reviews, I call it the Motel 8. There was an incident where there was 6 units all attached to develop this property. And again, I looked at it from the point of view of Oven Rock Partners across the street, where there are now 2 two-family homes, where there were going to be, I think it was maybe 10 or 12 in the front and 26 in the back. But outside of the blasting and other issues that you have brought up, which should be considered, I just wanted to clarify how we got to where we got to today. That's it.
Thank you, Beth.
Continue the meeting.
Please.
So, you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we continue the meeting
To July 8th.
for, I don't know which.
The
one it
public
is.
hearing continue, just,
1 Knollwood Drive,
Seven.
72 Reservoir Street.
Yeah.
Slash vote.
Second.
Bob?
Aye.
Paul, did you want to take back over as chair?
You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Hey everyone, how are you?
how are you?
Good. Are we moving? Sure, I can do that for
Yeah,
this.
moving on to the business meeting section.
Got it. Okay. And we obviously continued the public hearing for Vessel.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that was mentioned. Has everyone had it? All right, so moving into thank you, Sproul, for picking up my slack. I apologize. And we're moving.
Wait, Paul, I'm sorry, I don't think we didn't mention. If anyone's here for Nashville, we're not talking about it tonight.
Yeah, if I can.
Sure, Jeremy, you have the floor.
Thank you. There was just for the folks in the room and online that are in attendance for Vessel, there was an error in the legal notice that was pointed out to us middle of last week by the attorney representing the application. And so we have asked the commission to simply table the opening of the hearing to the next meeting on July 8th. so that a new legal notice could be run to deal with the error that was in the notice.
All right, so Jeremy, we're not even opening the public meeting, the public hearing for it tonight?
Correct. I'm going to ask you to just table it to July 8th.
Is that just continuing until July 8th?
Yes.
All right, do you need a motion for that?
You as the chair can do that. You can table the opening of the hearing.
All right, so I'm going to table the opening of the hearing for Vessel RE Holdings, 48 and 50 Nashville Road, to our next regular scheduled meeting, which is July 8th. Is that correct? That is July 8th? Yes.
Yes.
Do you
All
need
right.
to give the reason for that? To table it because to meet the legal requirements?
I can state, I mean, we're tabling it because of the error in the public noticing to allow for proper public noticing.
Okay.
Great.
Excellent. We will move into item number 6, the business meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting on 5/27?
Yes.
Any questions, comments, concerns?
I had added something, I sent an email to Amanda to bring, to Jeremy, just, one section of that we brought up about the, I think it was during our, I brought up the letter, under the work session about the sewer allotment concern because it hadn't been addressed. And so we need to have that in there under the work session, although I don't know if Jeremy doesn't think we need to add that in there, but we didn't have that information and there was no letter back from Thomas Vila other than the initial one we had done about the sewer allotment. It was supposed to be added to,
No, so you're on, so what you're doing is you said that you want.
Diane, are you making a motion? Are you making
Yeah.
a motion to?
Yes,
to
yes.
amend
I'm just explaining right now, but I
Okay.
decided to make a motion.
the- Okay. So you made a motion to amend the minutes under the work session, specifically for the TD and Sons 53 Taylor Avenue
Right,
discussion.
right.
Um,
About needing, a letter from Thomas Vila from Public Utilities. It needed to be, reviewed by them.
or asking for a review for the public utilities. I just want to make sure we're getting this right. Amanda, are you writing this down?
And they needed to invite, the Public Utilities needed to invite Steve Trucas to their meeting because they had changed the plan to 20 units. And so I think Jeremy was gonna then deal with that, but that's what the change is, to add that in there.
Real quick, Amanda, can you just read that back? Just so we're all clear.
So she wants me to amend the minutes from the last meeting for the work session to put in that we need to, saying that Steve Trinkus needs to go to the Public Utilities Commission, per their last letter. No, letter dated that day. Yeah.
April.
Yeah.
April.
Yeah.
But they needed to, evidently he needs to be invited,
Yes, he does.
so.
But that's not on us to do. That's on the planning utilities to invite him. If they don't invite him, then yeah,
Because it
Okay.
hasn't addressed the sewer issue.
exactly.
It has not been
Yes.
addressed.
So, but I did talk to Tom Villa and he did reach out to Steve. He's just waiting for a response.
Hold on, we have a motion. I just want to make sure I'm hearing it correctly. Can we just read this through cleanly one time on what the motion exactly is, please?
Sure. Okay. So the motion is to add at the last meeting minutes under work session, Taylor Avenue to have Steve, attend a Public Utilities Commission meeting per their request by their letter dated, I know the date, so, yeah.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
Abstention.
I will abstain as well, seeing as I'm recused from that application.
That only leaves 3. Does that pass then?
How many members do we have right now?
Well, if you're both abstaining, then only Diane, Sproul, and Bob.
And then we can
That's
vote
not a
on-
quorum.
we can vote on minutes then.
You have 4 people voting.
On the minute.
No, we can't vote on.
Well, he's abstaining from the
I'm
change.
abstaining from the motion. I'm recused from the application.
Excuse.
No, not from not from the minutes itself. He's just recusing from the amended part of the motion, the minutes. So if you don't amend the minutes, then you'll approve the minutes.
So if I may, what you might want to do, since there's some confusion over this and because you're short on members tonight, you might want to just table this decision to approve the minutes to your next meeting when you have more members who were present during the last meeting and were in attendance.
Okay, I'm fine by that. So we will continue. You said something?
Or you need a motion to table it, Paul?
I'll make a motion to table the accepting of the minutes till our next meeting on July 8th. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. I see we have no invoices. Amanda, is that still correct? Nothing's come in?
Yeah, no invoices.
Excellent. Move right into the work session for TD and Sons Incorporated, 53 Taylor Avenue, 830G, site plan for 20 units. And as we know, I am recused from this application. So I will take a step back, and Sproul, you can have the reins.
All right. So at this point, the public meeting on this is closed.
So it's just you guys.
So
And Jeremy, do you have any questions for Jeremy?
Jeremy, do you have any input on this before we discuss this among ourselves?
I do not at this point. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them as you go along.
So this also ties in with the public utility commission.
You can always make it a condition of approval that he needs to go to the public or contact the public
Right.
utilities.
Right.
So you can always do that.
Also, we did not ever get a plan showing which houses or wells were going to be reviewed by the applicant before blasting. 250 feet, we're supposed to have a plan.
Oh.
So-
I would ask Jeremy that question.
Yeah, so it is a state requirement that those houses within 250 feet be notified. So I recognize that the commission asked for those addresses, but that will be a requirement of the blaster before they can actually get a permit from the fire marshal to blast. So if you want to put a condition in there, you could, because it is a requirement anyway. You're not asking anything above and beyond what is required as a baseline to get that permit.
So Jeremy, how do we deal with the fact that we've asked for certain information that hasn't been provided?
So, I think you need to recognize what the questions were that you asked that didn't get responded to, and then we'll talk those through. And it's possible that some of the questions or some of the responses are in the record. We'd need to go through this. I know you had several months worth of testimony. I wasn't here for most of those. But I would probably, during your discussion, talk about what those questions were that you feel as though were not answered.
All right. So then the approach here would be for us to put those in writing, submit it to staff, give you and copy you, and then give you a chance to review that.
Yes, we can do that.
So I make a motion that we as commissioners provide our meeting open items to staff and for review by Jeremy to understand what our next steps would be as it pertains to this application. Any comments?
So I just want to make sure I understand. So you want to just email Jeremy your questions or comments for the May items, and then
I want.
then he'll got
the
it.
Comments. with you.
Yeah, and then okay, yep,
And he gets one
perfect. Okay, yep,
piece of correspondence.
Got
with
it.
all of our questions.
sounds good.
Yeah, I think that would be the appropriate way to do it, is if you could figure out what those questions are during either tonight's meeting or in your meeting in 2 weeks and get those, a whole list over to us, then the staff can start digging through the record and getting the answers for you.
So let me modify
Yeah,
my
I think
motion to
so.
say that the commissioners provide all of their questions to Amanda in the next 48 hours, 2 days.
Yeah.
Via email.
Second.
All right. so-
And, and keep in mind, no new information can be submitted at this point. So what it'll be is it'll essentially be a record review to make sure that if any questions that got asked and the answers are there somewhere, we'll simply refer you to where the answer can be found.
So do you want to do a roll call vote?
Yes.
Does Bob have something to say?
If there's no answer to some of those questions, we could still make it a condition of approval to get,
Correct.
to meet that requirement.
Correct.
If it is a requirement somewhere within the regulations, or remember, this is a site plan, it's not a special permit. So
Right.
your ability to condition the approval is a little bit different than it would be if it were a special permit. But for items that are already requirements, such as the blasting notification to those within 250 feet, or final approvals from your Public Utilities Commission, those types of things, which are going to be required anyway. But if you want to bolster your approval and make sure that the applicant is aware that these things need to be done and the commission knows it, then those can be added as conditions of approval.
Right, okay. Thanks, Chair.
Bob, are you a yes for the motion?
That's the motion.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so do you want to table this for the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Better start this late.
Yeah.
Maybe a starter. Yeah.
We should consider maybe starting half an hour early.
I mean, you guys gotta make a motion about it. You guys want to do
Let's
that?
get to the end.
Yeah,
You remind me.
sure, okay.
All right, so Paul,
I'm back. So we're moving to new business. We have 8A 19 Trowbridge Drive. Jeremy, you have some information for us on this?
The applicant's project engineer is still on the call. That's Mr. Trinkus. I suspect he'll give you a presentation on this. You did accept it at your last meeting. It is a site plan application, so you've got 65 days. There are opportunities for extensions if need be. We do have comments back from a number of town departments, and we did receive revised plans earlier today. And I'll let Mr. Trinkus take over from here.
Good evening, Commissioners. Steve Trinkus, for the record, professional engineer representing Arctic Builders, who's the contract purchaser of 19 Trowbridge. We did get comments from Jeremy, I think, at the end of last week, which I was addressing Monday morning. And as I was about to send him the revised plans, we then got in succession SLR comments from Public Utilities and the Fire Marshal. So it took a little bit longer to make some modifications of the plans, which then I submitted to Jeremy. I do have prints which I will drop off tomorrow for it. So I'd like to just walk the commission. I'll share my screen again and walk you through the changes to the plan. So the this is one of the lots that was created by the extension of Trowbridge Drive in the industrial park. The original cul-de-sac ended just to the north of this lot. SLR had done the design work for the subdivision of the industrial park back, I think, 2018, give or take. As part of that, on this parcel, on the north end of it, they created a large stormwater basin, which is about half the usable area on this parcel, for all of the runoff from all of the potential development of these additional lots. This particular project by Arctic Builders is a contractor's building for, plumbers, electricians. There's a total of 8 units. They're all 30 by 50 foot. We originally had a singular driveway that came in basically the center line of the driveway, the center line of the building, and went left and right to either side. Based on, comments from the fire marshal on SLR, we made it separate driveways. The north driveway is a straight shot in. The southern one has to angle because we have transformers for the electrical that are, quite honestly, smack in the middle of where I would want to put my driveway. So we're going to have 2 separate driveways, one for each side. Each of the units has at least 2 parking spaces. At Jeremy's request, under the zoning, we needed 18. And I had 16, so we added 2 spaces, basically, 1 regular space, and then 2 regular spaces, then 2 van handicap spaces. These will be on the front 2 units because the proposed grade is level here. So there's no issues with slope for ADA compliance. So there will be a 9-foot space and a 7-foot aisle, for the van. So the dumpsters were revised. I actually designed this before the zoning regulation got changed. So now we have, a 10 by 12 dumpster. We have a white vinyl fence with a gate. We have 1 dumpster on each western corner of the site. At the western side of this site, there will be a retaining wall is cut into the hillside. The grade above this goes up substantially, up to the upper limit of the lot. This is a 3-acre lot. So originally it was about 5 feet off the back of the building. We've made it 10 at my client's request to put a gravel area here where the HVAC, like air conditioning units, would go adjacent to the building on the gravel area, and you could, obviously have plenty of room to walk behind it as far as that goes. This is basically a 1-story building. There's office space on, the ground level. There's a garage door, and then basically it's open storage, to be, set up is for the, the client using the area. Plumber or electrician may put shelves in there for, all their equipment. Some guys, I've seen one in Ridgefield I did where they actually have all the storage away from the garage door, and they can actually pull 2 vehicles into the building, the way they set it up. But again, this is set up for small contractors. So again, based on, all the staff comments, when SLR did the road, they put in a hydrodynamic separator for drainage from their last pair of catch basins on the site. And I'm not sure why my PDF program is being slow, but there's a pair of catch basins in front of the pond, and then the surveyors located a manhole. And I went back to the original SLR plans, and it's actually a hydrodynamic separator before it goes into the forebay of the basin. So we have 2 catch basins on our site, 1 at each driveway just inside of our property line. Originally, I had the discharge pipe coming into the riprap pad. It was asked, to treat the water, so we're going to connect to the hydrodynamic separator. So we'll go through the separator and then back into the, the detention pond. By separating the driveways, it allowed now open area in front of the buildings. So now we can have a landscaped area here. Previously, I only had about 4 feet from the driveway to my property line. So it was very limited what we could do with landscaping. Additionally, between the edge of the road and our property line is you have all the utilities. Instead of many of the utilities being within the roadway, especially the gas line, the gas and electric, all these other things are all within the right of way. So there's really no ability to plant anything in that area. So we can plant within our, frontage of our site now in front of the building. All of the other staff comments were addressed. A lot of them, a lot of Jeremy's comments were also called out by SLR. We addressed all of them. The Fire Marshal Tom had a comment. He's concerned that from the edge of the road to the back of the building is a little more than 150 feet, so we'd have to have a vehicle turning area. I spoke with Joe Versteeg, who is a fire consultant that I've used, my clients have used on many other projects. He knows the fire codes inside, outside, upside down about this requirement. And what he said, and I'm going to use this one unit back here as the example. The garage door is at this western end of it. The fire code is you measure from the garage door 50 feet away, which would put it basically in the middle of this unit. And then that 150-foot distance to the travel way is measured from there. So from this point, where I guess it's parking space P13 to the edge of the road is actually only about 120 feet. So it's less than the 150-foot requirement under the fire requirements. So we do not need a turning area around there. Similarly, it's the same condition on the south side of the building, where it's 50 foot from the garage door, and then you measure out to the road. And again, that's less than the 150. It's also important to keep in mind, if there's a fire in one of these rear units, as Joe pointed out, first thing is, anybody that might have been in there is going to take their car and leave the site, so you're not going to have parked cars here. But also, he said, if there was a fire in the, end unit, the fire truck is not going to pull up opposite that unit to fight the fire. They're going to pull up just below it, because if the fire somehow gets out of control, then their fire truck could be, as he put it, toasted in that proximity. So they're not going to park in that area. But we do, and I'll put this in writing because I only got this information late today for the record, but we do comply without a turning requirement, here. But that's why we did this straight in driveway, just like, quite honestly, many residential homes, a fire truck pulls in, they'll just back straight out. But this is also 42 foot wide from the building to the edge of the parking. So, to a pumper truck could easily do a 3-point turn here with no vehicles in the way. So that's really kind of a summary of the application. I think Todd Ritchie did ask that we do a curtain drain behind the retaining wall. This will be some type of modular block wall. There is many different kinds of wall. Particularly, he had a concern of the southern side where we're close, relatively close to the property line. But there are modular block walls that do not require the geogrid to go back, where it potentially would go to the other property. My client, Sam Lambert of Arctic Builders, has had conversations with the owner next door, about, when they do the site work, kind of, working together, in combination, to do the site work, because the other site next door also has similar topographic issues. The other thing on this site is in the center front here, there's a low point. It actually, the average grade around is about 424. The road is 425. There is a hole, for lack of a better term. This was supposed to be, according to my client, this was supposed to be filled in when the road was built. And looking at the profile of the road by SLR, they raised the grade substantially, and I guess excess material that they had from the cul-de-sac and some of the lots at the end, they used to build the road, and thus did not have material to fill in this hole. So we're going to have to, fill in this hole because the grade is around 426. So, it's filling in a 6 to 6.5 foot hole, in the middle of the property, to make this, a usable parcel. So that's really an overview of the site. And again, we did respond to everything yesterday, and I know your staff needs time to obviously take a look at everything, that, we provided.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Trinkus. Any commission comments? Questions?
So key player here is our fire marshal coming back with their comments, correct? After these changes and Mr. Trinkus has enumerated?
Yeah, I got a letter from Jeremy at the end of the day. Again, Tom still wants a turning area, but I talked to Mr. Versteeg after that, so I will provide a response based on my conversation. And I'll mark up the plan so it's very clear that we are in compliance with the fire code.
Mr. Trinkus, when you do that, just because there's a lot of information on that one plan that you were just showing as far as the driveways and the topographical lines and such, could you just provide one map that just has that those sight lines for the fire? Just
Sure. Yeah. That's
make it a little
easy.
easier on the eye.
Yep. No, I don't disagree. We can do that.
I appreciate that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump on you, Sproul, if you had any other questions there.
No, I'm just looking to make sure we have a checkbox for receiving the fire marshal's comments to these changes.
Okay.
And interpretations of this.
Anything else from the commission in there? Diane? Doug?
Nope.
Mr. Legnard?
Steve, is the plan to sprinkle this building, or is it going to be,
It's public water. I will ask my client. I don't have an answer off the top of my head, if he plans to or not. I think many of the commercial buildings in the industrial park are actually sprinkled. It may be that insuring companies require that. So, but I will check.
okay, thank you.
Steve, couple questions. Is there any plan, and maybe I didn't see it, to put like a signage on front? If you're going to have all these contractors in there with their little shops.
Yeah, the building, they might like to do a sign. They don't have plans for one now, so that'll be subject to a separate permit. Most likely each unit owner will come in for one on their building wall that faces the driveway. But we're going to have to come back on. That's why I kind of left room in my landscaped area for a freestanding sign, but we don't have plans at this point for one, so that'll become a separate permit.
Okay. Excellent. I think the good use of the property. I just want to get all these couple questions figured out, and then we'll go forward.
Okay. All right.
Jeremy, do you have anything to add before we move on?
Not at this time. Nope. I've got my comments out to Steve. He's got responses. I think I'm okay for now.
Okay. So then we will continue this to the next public hearing.
Yeah. No public hearing needed.
Not public hearing. I'm sorry. Just work session. Correct. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Just a motion to continue.
I have it.
To July 8th.
I'll make a motion to continue this to July 8th.
And if it gets late, we will give you an extension after Vessel Technologies, so we're not here till midnight. I actually was at a meeting last week in Westport. They went, we got on at 11:30 at night, and they went like an hour after that. It was, nobody pays attention that late anymore. So.
Sorry, Steve. We have a motion and it's been seconded. All in favor?
Did not hear a second.
Bob seconded it.
Oh, Bob did. I'm sorry, Bob. I didn't hear you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. And Steve, I agree with you. I've been trying to smooth and streamline our public hearings a little bit more, and we'll get into that during my commission comments.
Okay, thank you, guys.
No problem. You're welcome. All right, we're going to move into the 8B proposed revision to transit-oriented development overlay zone boundary. Jeremy, I know. I'm sorry, you had something before.
I was just showing you, Paul. This is the map that I'm going to have the fish members look at. It's in the drive. It's the proposed map that Jeremy did.
Yeah, that's the one in the drive. Yep, thank you.
Yep.
Jeremy, can you just go through with the commission the email exchange with Attorney Andrews after the last meeting?
Certainly. Just so the commission's aware, this will require a public hearing. So what we're asking you to do tonight is we filed the formal application based on the map that was agreed upon at the meeting 2 weeks ago. And that is the map, for those of you in the room, that is in front of you, which shows the current TOD boundary and the proposed revised boundary based on the map that was put together last time. At the meeting 2 weeks ago, Attorney Andres made some comments about what could and could not be done after the legal notice was published and during the public hearing. Subsequently, the next day, he sent myself and Paul a follow-up email clarifying his comments. I'm going to read you not the entire email because it's pretty long, but I will. If you recall, what he basically said was, if the commission sets the boundary for the application, you can't really change it. You can't expand that boundary, right? So you can go smaller than the boundary that you set during the application, but you can't go larger. He followed up the next day with a clarification, because you have a larger boundary and you are attempting to go smaller with the TOD boundary. So I'm just going to read you one paragraph. He says, here, however, the commission is not proposing to expand the TOD overlay to an area where it was not previously located. If it were, the reduce but not expand rule would apply, so that the commission could not include properties that were outside the area of the new TOD boundaries delineated in the legal notice. Instead, the commission is proposing to reduce the area of the existing TOD overlay, with the new TOD overlay being the smaller area delineated by the commission on the map prepared by me. The actual properties affected by the zone change are not the properties in the revised, in parentheses, smaller TOD overlay, since those properties will remain in the TOD, but the properties previously in the TOD overlay, but that are now outside the overlay. Under this scenario, the area subject to the reduce but not expand rule would be the areas being excluded from the TOD overlay. So if the commission removed additional properties from the TOD shown on the revised map, it could be subject to challenge under the reduce but not expand rule. So what he's saying there, to simplify it, is the map in front of you, the red area is the new proposed boundary. If you want to add properties to that during the public hearing, you can do that up to the point of the existing TOD boundary. However, you might run into trouble if you try to reduce the TOD further. And so what he says here is we have to be very careful in the wording of the legal notice. And so what we're suggesting is that when you schedule a public hearing, we will put a legal notice together. We will run it by the land use attorney and have him provide any insight that he can to the language that goes into the legal, so that it gives the commission proper cover to do what it needs to do during the public hearing based on the feedback that you all receive from the public.
Thank you, Jeremy. In layman's terms, I just want to make sure. So we're going to make sure that when this gets to public hearing, that we could adjust the red area plus or minus.
That would be the intention, is to get the legal notice correct so that you can do that.
Because I think the commission feeling I was getting 2 weeks ago, particularly to some of the areas west of the tracks, was that commissioners originally, especially in the when the first motion was made a few months ago, was we didn't want to have anything west of the tracks. But then I think there was one commissioner that was vocal saying that he thought some areas should be. So when we heard the recommendation by the attorney, we had added some of that stuff in because it was you can, if it's not on there now, you can't reduce it later. So I just want to make sure we're clear that map in front of us is, again, just a starting point. When we get to the public hearing, we can reduce that even further if we decide. We can expand it if we decide, as long as we're working within the current TOD boundaries. That's correct?
That's my understanding, and we'll work with your land use attorney to make sure that we get it right so that you don't run into trouble.
Yes, because I think, again, and I'm not speaking for anybody other than myself, but I think the proposed map, while I agree to it to get the ball rolling, I would like to see it more concentrated to the east side of the tracks, not much on the west side of the tracks. So I just want to make sure that we're not, committed to keeping to that red area, and that it's a working, map, I should say. That's not. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so what I would say is when you set the public hearing date, just keep in mind that we do want to run the legal notice by your land use attorney. He's currently on vacation, and my understanding is he'll be back July 7th. So keep that in mind.
Okay. Not to jump ahead, and I want to make sure all the other commissioners have a chance to speak on this. I would propose scheduling the public hearing for this to open up on July 22nd. The idea being, I think we have a few items already scheduled for the 8th, continue to the 8th. I know we have a new 830G proposal coming on the 8th. So if we were to plan to open this on the 22nd, optimistically, we can get a few things off of our plate next week or the next meeting, open the new 830G, and then get into the TOD the following meeting on July 22nd. Again, I just want to reiterate the fact that I want to make sure this is done legally and properly, and that the map can again, this is a starting point. We can adjust it from here. So with that being said, does any other commissioners have any questions or comments to add? Anyone?
Nope.
No?
My only comment would I support the position and direction you're taking, is that we have the ability to reduce further. As long as we get to the meeting with the ability to do that, then we need findings.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I don't want to be locked into this and have all this discussion because again, I know there's some areas to the west side of the tracks that I would like to see removed. And I just want to make sure we still have that ability when it comes time to the public hearing portion.
One other point of clarification, Jeremy, another question. There's another option to eliminate the TOD, correct? That's still on the table. That could be on the table.
Yeah, that would need to be a different application than what's been filed right now. I mean, if the commission desired to get rid of it altogether, we would need to pull this application and file a different one.
Okay.
We do have that, Jeremy. We do have that option once the public hearing starts and it's underway, and depending on the comments we get or whatever, we do have the option of withdrawing the application.
Correct.
Yeah, because this is commission initiated, so we could withdraw the application from ourselves at any point, and then make a new, motion and application. I mean, it would take a few weeks or months because that's how fast we work, but the system works, I should say. But that is an option, correct?
Correct. Yes. You can always withdraw. And keep in mind too, this is a commission initiated application, so your standard timelines that you all are used to working with in terms of applications don't apply. So you can take as long as you need to get to the right decision here, so that you make a sound decision that gets the public comment in that you need and gets you where you want to be.
All right.
That's some of the frustration here, right? We've been kicking this can down the road for years now. So I would even prefer to have it bound by time, but understood. could it be crafted in such a way that we could build in the effect of going to zero TOD in the review process in the same application?
I don't know about that because right now you have the application is worded and submitted that it is an amendment to your existing boundary. So again, I'll have a conversation with the land use attorney to give you as much leeway as possible in the way that the legal notice is crafted. But I would say if you wanted to eliminate altogether, I think that would need to be its own application or a separate application rather that is worded elimination of TOD.
That being said, I'd like to make a motion to schedule this for a public hearing on July 22nd. The matter of redrawing the lines of the TOD, that is particularly.
Second.
I'll do a roll call. Diane,
Yes.
Sproul,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Motion passes. There's nobody hiding down where Kenny usually sits, right? The camera doesn't really show.
No, just you guys.
I just wanted to make sure. I didn't think so, but all right. Well, the motion passes, so we'll start the TOD chat, public hearing, I should say, on July 22nd. We will move into public input. Uh-oh. Go ahead. Amanda.
You did get, I did send you an email about, the summit at Bethel, for you guys to discuss it during public comment.
Did I miss anything?
So Amanda's referring to an email that we received from Bill O'Halloran. And if you'd like, Mr. Chairman, I could just read it into the record. He wanted to submit this to you all. I think I saw him pop onto the call earlier, so he may even want to just speak during public comment, but I don't know if he's still online or not.
Yes, yes.
I'm here.
Okay. So Bill, would you like to just submit your public comment yourself then?
I don't know how you want to do it, Jeremy. Without, the way you described it is the way you want to run the meeting. So you want to read it into it, or has the commission seen the documentation or not?
I'm reading it right now, Mr. Halloran. I'm sorry I missed it. I was away this past weekend. Mr. Halloran, has the staff not been able to provide you with these documents you've asked about?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We're on a timeout here.
Doug went to go use the bathroom, but you have a quorum. Yeah, there's four of you. So you can continue.
Okay.
Yeah, after the last time I was at the meeting, I was provided 3 documents. Most of them I had already had. One was called a 2/4/2019 Fusion Engineering called Detention Basin Completion. Beth had already provided me that a few years ago. One was 2/3/2017 drawing called Improvement Location Road and Utility As-Built. And one was dated 1/2/2019 Improvement Location Water As-Built. They seem to be, to some extent, randomly picked documents from Toll. They do not seem to be what I asked for, which really was the commission's minutes from May 14, 2019, which stated staff provided an update entitled Toll Brothers Summit at Bethel Approvals and Vesting. And that's the document that I'm most interested in at this point in time. That is an actual commission document, the way your commission's minutes read. that I have to assume stated what Toll claimed they completed and what the staff and the existing commission at that time was approving as a completed project. There's a lot of background here. I also included the way back actual commission approval of our project up here, the entire development. I don't know if I want to get into sharing. I included that as an attachment also. And that was way back from December 18th, 2006, the approval of the site plan. And it had numerous stipulations, including the bonding and the signed approvals by licensed engineers every time things were completed. Things like drainage, road construction, utility installation, landscaping, erosion sediment controls, lighting and sidewalks. All those things, as they were completed, were supposed to be signed off by an engineer, provided to the town, to the Planning and Zoning Commission at the time, before bonds were released. I've asked for those existing documents that were presented by Toll, as well as the bonding history. I never got any of that.
Okay.
And
My question is for Amanda. Amanda, I know Mr. O'Halloran was here a few meetings ago, and we started this conversation. I assume you guys in the office have been looking for these documents. Do they just not exist? It seems like a pretty straightforward request.
Yeah, I have not been looking for these documents.
Okay. Is anybody looking for these documents for him? And I'm not trying to dig at you. I'm just.
I know, not at the moment, but we can. I just haven't had the time to do that because we're low on staff. So I will put a note in to locate these documents.
Yeah, can we? I don't want to. I know we're all very busy. I mean, that was my excuse for not being in person there tonight. But I know Mr. O'Halloran has been asking for this stuff for a while. Can we? Yeah, I don't know if it's you, Amanda, or if it's the town clerk's office has got to dig some of this stuff up. But
I wasn't here for. Like, I personally was not working at the time. Some of the stuff he's asking for. So
I wasn't on the commission either, but
yeah,
this stuff should be in a file somewhere for sure.
I'll make a note and I will look into that. And as soon as I find it, I will forward it to Bill.
Okay.
There's another issue entirely, and that is, and I brought it up when I was at the meeting before, and it's more than frustration. I'm really appalled that, from what I can see, no one seems to be responsible for ensuring that the stipulations placed on a developer, particularly a development of the size I represent, 232 Bethel families, you had pretty stringent requirements in the site plan. And I don't see where those stringent requirements were followed up. I'm specifically talking, and it's in the letter that I presented, there's over 5,000 linear feet of chain link safety fencing on the site plan. That was an agreement between the developer, Toll Brothers inherited it, but it's their responsibility, placed on them by the town of Bethel, agreed to by the Planning and Zoning Commission and the developer, to place these chain link fences. They were not installed. We had we're going through ongoing meetings with Toll at great expense with our own engineers and lawyers. Those fences are not installed. From our point of view, Toll Brothers and the town of Bethel has significant liability. While maybe all 5,000 feet of safety fencing isn't required on the site, there's a lot of cliff and rock wall faces without fencing. And someone falls off that and gets hurt. The liability from our point of view falls on the town and on Toll Brothers, because the requirement placed on them there was an agreement between town and Toll Brothers, not the Summit of Bethel Homeowners Association. We assumed all those things were done. We paid engineers to discover and measure what was not done.
I agree with you, Bill. You know, we work hard as a commission to make sure that these projects are done in our opinions, you know, legally correctly. We put on stipulations, you know, to make sure we're appeasing safety and neighbors' concerns and things. And I think it's important to make sure these things are followed up on.
And that's the part that I see as a failure. I certainly see all the hard work being done to design the projects effectively, but I don't see the follow-up, particularly in our project, where it just seemed to have been closed out.
No, I know. I agree with you.
A number of times, when you had it, the town hired an engineer. I thought, oh wow, things are gonna be good. I met with Beth and the town, what was his name, DeMayo, on August 22, asking some of these same questions. And I heard then I'll get some answers about the bonding and things. And then I started digging into the minutes and discovered that the project was closed out 3 years prior to that, as far as the commission was concerned. That was never even mentioned to me.
All right. Well,
Oh, I have a question.
sure.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
what you're saying is that there's no bond being held anymore.
No, in 2009, May 2019, the Planning and Zoning Commission released, told Beth to release the bonds. That's the documentation I'm asking for. That must mean that Toll claimed they completed the required work. And we got a lot of questions about the work they
And the
completed.
engineer should have signed off to say that it was complete.
Yeah. I'd love to see what they claimed they completed and signed off on.
Mr. O'Halloran, I'm hearing you. And I want to work and see if you can get that we can get that information for you, because this doesn't sound like a big ask. Jeremy, I know you're working in the office tomorrow. Would you be able to carve out some time to look into this?
Yeah.
Referring to his email.
So what I was about to jump in and say was that, you know, this, and I don't know the particulars of this, obviously, you know, I've been kicking around here for about a month and a half, maybe 2 months at this point. And so this is way before my time. And, you know, sometimes, unfortunately, we have to kind of sit back and say sins of the past. I don't know, you know, we're talking about multiple staff people deep back in time. And so it gets a little bit sticky. Bonding requirements, you know, as the commission knows, but for your own benefit, Mr. O'Halloran, they can only bond public improvements. And that's really about it. We can't put bonds on fencing inside the site and things like that. So bonds aren't always the way. It's kind of a multi-step process. So yes, there should be a process where maybe COs get held up until certain improvements are done, or road acceptance.
I understand, but this is an old project.
Yeah, no, right. And and I'm just talking about it in general. Right. So
to wrap this up, and Mr. O'Halloran, I don't want to, you know, cut you off. I'm hearing you have valid questions. I've asked Jeremy and Amanda to look into this. Jeremy and Amanda, if you do find anything, and can you just CC me on any emails to Mr. O'Halloran? I want to make sure that he gets these answers. Or any information that we dig up on this, because again, this should be, you know, he had come, like I said, a few meetings ago, and had asked about this, and I know we had talked about, and I think staff was gonna work on it. I know we had joked lightheartedly, because we had just made David the zoning enforcement officer that night, that he was gonna look into this. So shame on me for never following up on it. Yes, let's move forward from here and see if we can start getting you some answers.
Okay.
We'll begin that work tomorrow. You know, I know Amanda's been working her tail off with Beth's retirement, and David's out of the office for 2 weeks. So we'll start this process tomorrow and see what we can find. And
I've done a lot of research too, so if I can help, reach out to me also. Jeremy, you saw my number in the email, on the emails.
Yep, I've got your contact information.
Reach out if I can help.
Thank
Okay.
you, Mr. Halloran.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any other public input in the room for the night? If you're sitting in the back, I'm sorry I can't see you, so you'd have to. Someone in the room can help me out there.
Shook your head
Shook
no.
her head no.
No. Does anyone online have any public input?
I do not see anyone with their hand raised at this time.
Excellent. Jeremy, you have anything from planners report?
My report is written, and I'll leave it at that as it's late.
Excellent. I appreciate that as well. Commission comments. We'll start with everyone in the room. Doug?
My only concern is flexibility on the TOD, and my inclination is smaller. So I just want to make sure we maintain that, or maintain the ability to do that.
I share your sentiments. Sproul?
No comments at this time.
Diane?
I think it's important if people do not make the meeting to not just read the minutes. They need to watch the video of the meeting, because otherwise you really miss everything that's going on in these projects. You have a lot of in and out, it seems like. So just my own comment.
All right. So, Leonard?
I'm good.
Excellent. And then I have two things, guys. Would everyone in the room be open to starting next meeting at 6:30 instead of 7? I know we have a chocked full agenda.
Sure.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we can.
Where have you been?
Yes.
I was at work at 5:30 this morning and worked till after 5 tonight. So I've been running around crazy. Still dressed for work, so I apologize.
No apologies. Just keep that money going.
Yeah, how you start that? Do you have a public hearing starting, or
What's that, Bob?
you have a public hearing starting at 6:30, or?
I think this is the meeting in general.
Yeah, just to open the planning and zoning meeting at 6:30 on the July 8th instead of our normal scheduled 7. Do you need a motion for that?
Yeah.
I think it's not a bad idea to make.
I'll make a motion to start the regular scheduled meeting for July 8th at 6:30 instead of 7 o'clock.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Work good if you bought pizza.
What's that?
You bring pizza, we'll start at 6:30.
I'll take it into consideration. And then I just wanted to follow up my email that I sent to the commission. Just again, I'm trying to streamline our public hearings. I don't want anyone in the public to ever feel like they're silenced. I don't want to ever have a commission member feel like they're silenced. But at the same time, I feel like in some of our public hearings, we have some of the same comments from different people over and over. I know we have a couple busy scheduling coming up, which I anticipate some renewed public interest in. I've talked to Jeremy about implementing a 3-minute time limit on public comment coming up for the just in the future in general. Also asking to refrain from applause, because I think as a commission it kind of drowns out everything, really. If you have people clapping when someone's saying something, I would suggest, and Jeremy said that some of the other towns he's worked with done something like this in the past, where if someone is speaking in the public and they make a good point that someone else in the audience agrees with, instead of clapping and applauding, we just ask them to, everyone can raise their hand to give everyone a visual, us the commissioners a visual to see how much people agree with that. It's not disrupting to the person speaking. It keeps the public meeting moving, making sure everyone gets a chance to say their piece. So just some things I wanted to let you guys know, because I don't want to have meetings that continue on past 10:30, 11 o'clock, because as we said before, the commission starts losing patience. And it's not fair to the applications, not fair to the public when meetings are going on that long and we can't give it our full attention. So I just wanted to give everyone a heads up on that. But any other commission comments before we close? I make a motion to close the meeting.
Second.
You say something.
No, yes.
Is it too late first? Can I say something, make a quick comment? It's in regard to what you just said.
Sure.
Thank you, Paul. I want to just say, remember all those people that came in at the very beginning of the meeting because they thought tonight, we would be discussing, Nashville Road. Somehow in your Google Drive, where you publicize what's going on, it's gotta be crystal clear what's going on. Yeah. Because I misunderstood it too. And I'm a veteran. I'm here all the time and I misunderstood it. I thought you were at least gonna be opening it and we'd be listening and hearing and learning. But that wasn't the case. Was here two different meetings in a row and I had to leave. And it's wrong and these people won't forget that. So
No,
it's gotta be clarified somehow. Okay.
Just to respond to that, when I learned about this, I had reached out to Amanda, and I also reached out to the first selectman. It was on his, we put that information out as much as we can. It was on the first selectman's weekly blurb that he puts out on social media. And actually, if you go to the town website, bethel-ct.gov, it's the first thing right across the top of the page. I'm looking at it right now. The planning and zoning public hearing on June 24th will now discuss 48 and 50 Nashville on July 8th. So again, we try our best to get the word out as best we can when we find these things out. So I don't, and I said this before, I don't want to waste anybody's time in the public. I don't like my time getting wasted. So,
And Paul, getting the legal notice proper and right protects both sides.
100%. We have to do things on the up and up. So that's why it was continued. And again, I know the staff worked hard to get the word out with tools that they have. So I will just remind everyone that's still watching to check the town website, check the first selectman's Facebook page. He's getting better and better every day. I'm putting information out on there and being more accessible. So, so you had one more thing to say?
Paul,
I'm sorry.
No, sorry, real quick. So Nancy's not saying that it's that people weren't seeing it. She's saying how it was worded, right?
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
So on the agenda, it says no testimony, no public comment, but they still thought that they could come and see it because it was on as a public hearing new. So.
Okay.
So that's what she's saying. She's saying it not because no one saw it; they did see it. It's just how it was worded to them.
I understand, and in the future we can do better on making sure our wording is completely clear. I've been working to trying to make the agendas a little bit easier to streamline and put a little bit more information on them to alleviate issues just like this. So I'll that's something we can improve on, definitely.
Thank you.
All right. Hearing that, I had made a motion. Bob seconded it to close the meeting. Do I have a all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night, all. Thank you.
That's short.